AITA for not allowing my sister to bring her kids to my wedding after they've ruined every family event we've had. I, 30F, am getting married to my fiancé, Luke, 32M, in about a month. We've been together for almost 5 years, and we're both super excited. The wedding has been a long time coming, and we've been planning it for over a year. It's going to be a small, intimate ceremony with only close family and friends. I've always dreamed of having a beautiful wedding with minimal drama, and honestly, I've worked really hard to make sure this day goes off without a hitch. Here's the issue. My sister, Jenna, 33F, is a huge problem when it comes to events, and this is causing some serious tension between us. Jenna has 2 kids, Ava, 6, and Ben, 8, and while I love them, they're incredibly misbehaved. I've tried to be patient with them over the years, but every time we have a family gathering, whether it's a holiday, birthday, or just a regular get-together, they cause chaos. Ava and Ben are loud, disrespectful, and have no boundaries. At family parties, they've broken things, interrupted speeches, knocked over drinks, thrown tantrums, and basically made everything stressful for everyone around them. I'm not exaggerating when I say that every single time we have a family event, Jenna does very little to discipline her kids. I get that parenting is hard, but when it's been years of this same issue, it's hard to just keep quiet about it. Luke and I have even had to leave early from some family gatherings because of how bad the situation gets. It's not that I don't understand that kids will be kids, but the lack of any effort to control them makes me question why Jenna doesn't take responsibility for their behavior. I've mentioned to her multiple times that her kids' behavior makes it hard for us to enjoy family events, and while she says she'll work on it, nothing ever changes. There was one instance at a birthday party where Ava grabbed the cake right out of the center of the table and smashed it in front of everyone, and Ben kicked over a punch bowl. Jenna didn't even apologize. She just kind of shrugged it off, and when I spoke to her about it later, she got defensive and said I was being too harsh. With all this in mind, when it came time to plan my wedding, I knew I didn't want to deal with the added stress of worrying about her kids running wild at my special day. I told Jenna up front that I wasn't planning on having children at the wedding. This was a decision Luke and I made together because we want the event to be calm and relaxing for everyone, and we didn't want to be distracted by kids misbehaving during the ceremony or reception. It's a small venue, and the last thing I want is chaos. Jenna was really upset when I told her. She immediately started telling me that I was being unfair and that I was excluding her children from an important family event. She kept saying how hurtful it was and how she couldn't imagine going to a wedding without her kids. She even said that her kids would behave if given the chance. But I've seen the same behavior so many times now that I just can't trust her word on it. She didn't take any responsibility for their actions in the past, so why would I believe it would be different this time? I explained to her that I loved her kids, but this was my wedding day, and I wanted it to be stress-free. I told her that if she couldn't find a sitter or make arrangements for them to be elsewhere, she could still come, but the kids would need to stay home. She responded by saying that it was unreasonable to expect her to come without her kids, and that I was asking her to choose between her children and her sister. She was clearly upset, and I could tell this was really bothering her. We've had several long, emotional conversations since then. She keeps telling me how hurt she is and how I'm pushing her away. It's gotten to the point where I feel like I'm being cornered. She's saying that if she can't bring the kids, she's not going to come at all. That puts me in a tough spot because I really want her at my wedding, but I also can't compromise on this. I don't want to invite her kids because I don't think they'll behave, but I also don't want to lose my sister over this. I've been getting advice from family and friends, and some of them are siding with me, saying that it's my wedding and I have every right to make decisions about the guest list. Others, though, are telling me I'm being unreasonable and that I should just let her bring the kids. They keep pointing out that this is a big family occasion and that I shouldn't let something like this come between us. Luke is supportive of my decision. He feels that we're not asking for anything outrageous, and he's actually been more vocal about how hard it's been for us to go to family events because of Jenna's kids. He's been my rock through this, but I still feel guilty about the possibility of losing my sister over this. Now, the wedding is just around the corner, and Jenna is still adamant about bringing the kids or not coming at all. I'm starting to feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I don't want to upset my sister, but I also don't want my wedding day to be a repeat of every family gathering we've ever had with her kids causing chaos. So, I'm asking AITA for not allowing my sister to bring her kids to my wedding after they've ruined every family event we've had. Edit. I've seen some comments saying that I should have been more direct with Jenna about her kids' behavior from the start. I've tried, but she always brushes it off or gets defensive. I get that maybe I should have set firmer boundaries earlier, but the fact remains that I've tried to address this issue multiple times over the years, and nothing has changed. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot and motivates me to create even more amazing content just for you. Make sure to turn on notifications so you'll never miss out on a new video. I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support. It truly helps the channel grow. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me. I, 29F, have a sister, Mia, 27F, who has always been the more perfect child in the family. She's always been the type of person who follows all the rules, has her life meticulously planned out, and seems to get everything she wants. I've never been like that. I'm a bit more spontaneous, not as put together, and my life has taken a few detours that Mia would probably disapprove of. Growing up, we were close, but things started to change in our late teens. Mia would often point out how much better she was at things, how she had her life in order, and how much she disapproved of my choices. I didn't take it personally at first, but it became a recurring pattern. By the time I was in my early 20s, I felt like every conversation we had was a critique of something I was doing wrong. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, and Mia got engaged to a guy, Tom. From the start, Mia seemed so happy, and I was genuinely happy for her. She had planned a big wedding, and of course, she expected me to help with a lot of things. Being a good sister, I agreed. I offered to help with the decorations, the guest list, and everything else that she needed. However, things quickly became tense when it came to the money part. Mia asked me to contribute financially to the wedding, which I was fine with at first. I'm not super wealthy, but I make a decent living, and I figured that it was important to support her. The problem started when the wedding costs went way beyond what she initially said. What started as an intimate wedding quickly turned into something that could rival a royal affair. The guest list kept growing, the venue was upgraded to a fancy resort, and suddenly, Mia wanted extravagant things. Every time I would ask for an estimate of how much money I would need to contribute, the number kept growing. Eventually, Mia told me that I would need to pay $10,000 to cover a significant portion of the costs, which was way more than I could afford. I explained that while I wanted to support her, I just couldn't afford that amount. I offered to pay a smaller portion, but Mia insisted that the money I offered was insulting. She said that if I really loved her, I would do whatever it took to help her have the perfect wedding. I tried to explain my financial situation, but she wouldn't hear it. The next few weeks were miserable. Mia stopped answering my calls, and whenever I did manage to get through, she would accuse me of not caring about her wedding. She said I was being selfish and that I was ruining her big day. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, but I stood my ground. I simply couldn't afford it. At one point, she told me that if I couldn't contribute financially, I shouldn't even bother coming to the wedding. I was shocked. It felt like I was being cut out of her life over money, something that in my mind shouldn't have been a deal breaker. After a long back and forth, Mia officially uninvited me to the wedding. She said that if I didn't care enough to sacrifice for her, then I didn't deserve to be there. I tried to reason with her, but she was firm in her decision. It felt like a slap in the face, and I couldn't believe that my own sister was choosing a wedding over me. I made the decision not to attend, but I also made it clear that I wouldn't be paying for any part of the wedding. I was hurt, and I didn't feel like I should have to pay to be part of her big day when she had basically kicked me out. The problem is my family doesn't see it the way I do. My parents have been pressuring me to just give her the money. They've said that it's only money and that I should just swallow my pride and help out for the sake of family. They've also said that I should apologize and try to make things right with Mia. But I feel like I've already been through so much emotional turmoil because of this whole situation. I'm not going to beg for her approval or sacrifice my financial stability just to please her. The issue has split the family. Mia's side of the family is all Team Mia, and they've been calling me selfish, immature, and ungrateful. My side of the family is divided, with some supporting me and others saying I should just pay up and be done with it. Even a few of my friends have said that I should just pay and move on. The thing is, I've been feeling more and more resentful of Mia's behavior. It feels like she's been using her wedding as a way to manipulate me into giving her money that I simply don't have. The idea that she would cut me out over something like this, especially when I've always tried to be there for her, feels so unfair. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she disinvited me? Should I have just given in to keep the peace, or am I right to stand my ground? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly humiliated me for not losing weight? I, 29F, have always been the bigger sister in my family. I'm 5 feet 8 inches and weigh around 230 pounds. My sister, 27F, on the other hand, is slim and has always been athletic. Growing up, we were close, but there was always this unspoken tension between us about our bodies. I've never been as focused on my weight as she has, but she's always made little comments, both subtle and not so subtle, about me needing to lose weight. It's always been uncomfortable, but I've tried to brush it off because I know she doesn't mean to hurt my feelings. Flash forward to a few months ago, and my sister got engaged. I was really happy for her, genuinely, but I started to feel that familiar sense of dread creeping in once I found out I was going to be a bridesmaid. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister and would do anything for her, but being part of a wedding party when you're not at your ideal weight can be stressful. I didn't want to feel like the fat bridesmaid who stood out like a sore thumb, especially when I knew my sister had a very specific vision for the way her wedding would look. A couple of weeks ago, she called me and asked if I had figured out my dress size for the wedding. I told her I hadn't yet, but that I was planning to look for something soon. She got very quiet for a second, then told me that she was thinking about ordering the dresses soon and needed to know what size I would be. I told her I was working on losing weight, but hadn't really lost much yet. She was really encouraging at first, saying she understood and that I would look beautiful no matter what. But then she added, I just want to make sure the dresses fit you. I don't want you to ruin the overall look of the bridal party by being too big. I was shocked. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. She had been so nice about it up until that point, but now it felt like a slap in the face. I told her that I would make sure the dress fit, but I was really hurt by what she said. She apologized and told me she didn't mean it like that, but it was clear she was just worried about how everything would look. A few days after that, we had a big family dinner where she announced the details of the wedding. She was talking about how excited she was for everything, how she had found the perfect venue, the perfect cake, and how everything was coming together. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped the bombshell that she had hired a personal trainer for all of the bridesmaids to help us get in shape before the wedding. She made it sound like this was an opportunity for all of us to get healthy and look our best for the big day. At first, I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to be rude or make things awkward, but it felt like she was singling me out. None of the other bridesmaids were as big as I am, so I assumed this was more for me than anyone else. I tried to laugh it off, saying I'd think about it, but she insisted that it was the best way to make sure we all felt confident and looked our best in the photos. I felt like I couldn't say no without causing a scene, so I just agreed to go along with it. The next week, she sent me a message with the contact info for the trainer, saying that she was so excited for us to get started. I didn't respond right away. I knew that the idea of working with a personal trainer felt like too much pressure. I've always struggled with my weight, and I didn't need to be reminded that I wasn't good enough the way I was. But I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I just stayed quiet. Then, the other day, we had a family gathering. My sister had just returned from fitting for her wedding dress, and she was in high spirits, chatting about all the plans. She turned to me and said, I just want to make sure you're doing everything you can to get in shape. The dress is going to be tight, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. That was the last straw for me. I didn't say anything right away, but later, when I had a moment alone with her, I told her that I didn't appreciate the pressure she was putting on me. I said that it felt like she didn't accept me the way I am and that I was hurt by her comments. She looked shocked and said she didn't mean to hurt me, but that she just wanted everything to be perfect. I then told her that I was really struggling with the idea of being in the wedding at all. I didn't feel like I could go through with it when I was being made to feel so uncomfortable in my own skin. I said that I couldn't attend the wedding if it meant constantly being reminded of my weight and how I wasn't good enough. She started crying and said that I was being selfish and that I was ruining her special day. She said she had worked so hard to make everything perfect, and now I was throwing a tantrum over something as silly as a dress. She told me that if I didn't go through with it, she would never forgive me. Our parents got involved, and now they're all telling me that I'm overreacting and that I should just go to the wedding and support my sister. But honestly, I don't know if I can do it. I don't want to be part of an event where I feel so humiliated and uncomfortable. It's not about the dress or the weight. It's about the way I feel like I'm being treated by someone I love. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after everything that's happened. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited me for not paying for a dress. I, 29F, have always been very close with my sister, Emma, 27F. Growing up, we were more like best friends than siblings. We shared everything, clothes, secrets, and dreams about our futures. I was always there for her, through thick and thin. But lately, things have started to unravel. Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Ryan, 29M, about a year ago, and the wedding planning started soon after. From the beginning, Emma asked me to be her maid of honor, and I was honored. We started making plans for the wedding, and everything was moving along smoothly. But as time passed, I started feeling more and more uncomfortable with how things were going. The first issue came when Emma asked me to contribute financially to some aspects of the wedding. I have always been on a tight budget. I've been working full-time since I graduated from college, but I've never made a ton of money, and I have a lot of student loan debt. My priority has always been paying off those loans and trying to save for the future. I'm also the primary caregiver for my mom, who is battling cancer, and that takes up a lot of my time and energy. When Emma asked me to pay for a significant portion of the bridesmaids' dresses, I felt awkward but didn't want to disappoint her, so I agreed. I contributed about $500 towards the dresses, which was a huge stretch for me. But then the requests kept coming. Emma asked if I could help cover the costs of the wedding planner, which was another $400, and later she asked if I could chip in for some of the decor, another $300. By this point, I was feeling really stretched thin, and I started to feel uncomfortable with how much money she was asking me to contribute. I'm sure many people would think that as a maid of honor, it's part of the job to contribute financially, but I wasn't in a position to keep saying yes. One day, I sat down with Emma and tried to explain that I was really struggling financially, especially with my mom's situation. I told her that I couldn't keep saying yes to every financial request, but that I still wanted to be there for her. I thought she'd understand, but instead, she got defensive and told me that if I couldn't contribute, I shouldn't be part of the wedding at all. She even said that being a maid of honor wasn't just a title, it came with responsibilities, and one of those responsibilities was paying for things. I was hurt, but I didn't want to escalate things, so I told her I would think about it. After that conversation, things started to feel strained between us. I felt like I was walking on eggshells every time we talked about the wedding, but I still agreed to do everything I could to support her emotionally. I went with her to all the bridal fittings, helped her pick out flowers, and even organized a few smaller events like a bridal shower. But the financial pressure never stopped. The final straw came when Emma called me one day, completely out of the blue, and told me she needed me to pay for her wedding dress. Yes, you read that right. She asked me to pay for her $2,000 wedding dress. I was speechless. I couldn't believe she was asking me to contribute to a dress I could never afford myself, especially after all the other financial demands she had already made. I tried to explain that I just couldn't do it. I told her that I had already given more than I could afford and that I had other financial obligations, including helping my mom. She didn't seem to care. She said if I couldn't pay for it, I couldn't be part of the wedding. I told her I needed time to process everything. I was so overwhelmed and hurt, but I didn't want to lash out. So I spent the next few days thinking about it. I realized that I had been doing everything I could to please her, but at what cost? I had been sacrificing my own financial stability to make sure she had the wedding she dreamed of, and it still wasn't enough for her. So, I made the decision that I couldn't be a part of her wedding anymore. I called Emma and told her I wouldn't be attending or being part of the bridal party. I told her that I loved her, but I needed to take care of myself and that her expectations were unrealistic. She was furious, and I've barely heard from her since. She sent me a long text saying that I was being selfish and that I was abandoning her when she needed me the most. She said she would never forgive me and that I had ruined her wedding. My family has been torn. My parents are disappointed in me, saying I should have just paid for the dress to keep the peace. They're also saying that I'm being selfish for putting my own financial struggles above my sister's happiness. Some of my friends agree with my decision, while others think I should have just sucked it up and helped my sister out. I'm feeling really conflicted and isolated right now. I don't want to be the bad guy, but I also don't think I should have to bankrupt myself to make my sister happy. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited me for not paying for her dress. AITA for refusing to let my sister's son attend my wedding after she disrespected me for years. I, 28F, am getting married in a few months, and things have been incredibly stressful. My fiancé, 29M, and I are trying to keep things simple, focusing on the ceremony and celebration we truly want. We spent months planning everything, from the venue to the guest list, making sure it's a reflection of our personalities. It's a big deal for us, and we want it to be special, especially since we've been through a lot as a couple to get to this point. Here's the backstory. I have a sister, Lena, 31F, who has always been difficult. She's one of those people who thinks the world revolves around her and has a history of making everything about herself. Growing up, my parents always catered to her whims. I don't know if it's because she's older or if they were just too tired to discipline her, but it always felt like I was second best. It was subtle at first. I would get overlooked at family events, and my achievements were downplayed while hers were celebrated. As we got older, the disparity became more glaring. Things got worse when she had a son, Charlie, 8, with her ex-husband. She was going through a rough divorce at the time, and I sympathized with her. I tried to be supportive, helping her with Charlie whenever I could. However, it quickly became clear that Lena thought she could take advantage of my kindness. She started using me as free childcare, often leaving Charlie with me without asking, just assuming I would drop everything to watch him. The worst part was that she never reciprocated. If I ever asked her for help, she'd either ignore it or make some excuse. Still, I kept doing it because I loved my nephew and didn't want to let him down. Over the years, Lena's behavior just kept escalating. She never acknowledged the things I did for her or thanked me for stepping up. It was like I was just a tool to her, and that was it. If I had any plans or wanted to do something for myself, she would make snide comments, often guilt-tripping me into helping her with Charlie. She would always say, "You don't have kids, so what else are you doing with your time?" It felt like she was trying to make me feel bad for not having children of my own yet, while she was constantly leaning on me for help with hers. My fiancé, who's always been supportive of me, would often point out how selfish Lena was being, but I would always brush it off. I felt guilty not helping her, like I had to because we're family. That is, until I hit a breaking point. Last year, she asked me to watch Charlie for an entire weekend while she went on a trip with her friends. I had plans to go away with my fiancé, but I put those aside to help her. She didn't even say thank you when she came back, and I was beyond frustrated. That was when I finally snapped. I told her I couldn't do it anymore, that I was tired of being taken advantage of. Lena, of course, flipped out. She told me I was being unreasonable, that I was just jealous of her life, and that I didn't understand how hard it was being a single mother. I explained that I wasn't jealous, but I was tired of being expected to drop everything for her without any consideration for my time or needs. That conversation turned into a huge fight, and she started making hurtful comments about my lack of children and how selfish I was for not helping her more. That was the moment I decided I couldn't keep tolerating her behavior. Fast forward to the present. I'm planning my wedding, and I've decided to not invite Lena's son, Charlie. The reason is simple. After everything that's happened over the years, I just don't feel comfortable with him being there. It's not about the kid, honestly. Charlie is a sweet boy, and I care about him, but I've been put in a position where I'm constantly expected to take on a role that isn't mine. Plus, I don't want to be put in a situation where I have to deal with my sister's entitled attitude at my wedding. When I told Lena about my decision, she was absolutely furious. She called me every name in the book and accused me of being petty and vindictive. She also said that I was ruining Charlie's life by excluding him from a family event and that it was cruel to him. I explained that it wasn't about Charlie, it was about her behavior over the years and how I wasn't willing to be disrespected anymore. She didn't care. She said that if Charlie wasn't invited, she wouldn't come either, and that I'd be making a huge mistake by alienating my family. She's been sending me angry texts and calling me selfish, but I feel like I'm finally standing up for myself. The thing is, I'm feeling really guilty now. I know it's my wedding, and it's supposed to be about me and my fiancée, but part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. I've always been the peacekeeper in the family, but this time I'm setting a boundary that feels right to me. I know Lena won't respect it, and I honestly don't know if I'm doing the right thing by excluding her son. But at the same time, I feel like I can't keep letting her walk all over me. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's son attend my wedding after all the years of disrespect. AITA for not letting my brother bring his dog to my wedding. So, a bit of background before I get into the situation. I, 28F, am getting married to my fiancée, 30M, in 2 months. We're having a pretty small wedding, around 100 guests, and we've put a lot of effort into making it a day that feels personal to us. My fiancé and I have talked a lot about what we want and don't want, and we've already made a lot of decisions to make sure the day goes smoothly. Now the issue. My brother, 32M, has a dog, a large pit bull mix named Rex. I'm not super close with my brother, but we get along fine and see each other at family events. He adopted Rex about a year ago, and he's very attached to the dog. He treats him like a child, and the dog goes pretty much everywhere with him. I'm not a dog person, and I'm especially not a fan of dogs being in places where they could cause chaos like indoor events, crowded places, or, most importantly, a wedding. A couple of weeks ago, my brother brought up the idea of bringing Rex to my wedding. He said he couldn't imagine being away from the dog for such a long time, and that he wanted Rex there for emotional support. I immediately said no. The venue we're having the wedding at is indoors, and while they allow service animals, they don't allow pets, especially not in such a formal setting. I explained this to him, and he got really upset. He tried to argue that Rex was an emotional support animal, but I told him that wasn't going to fly with the venue's rules. And even if it did, I didn't want to take the risk of having a dog running around during such an important event. At first, he seemed to accept it, but a few days ago, he called me again and asked if I could reconsider. He said that he'd find a way to keep the dog out of the way, and he wouldn't let Rex disturb anything. He even offered to bring a dog handler to keep Rex calm, but honestly, the idea of someone having to babysit a dog at my wedding felt absurd to me. I told him, again, that I wasn't okay with it, and that I wanted the day to be about the people who were actually attending, not about catering to a dog. This is where it gets tricky. My brother is now refusing to come if he can't bring Rex. He says that he's not going to leave his best friend alone on such an important day, and that it's unfair of me to expect him to choose between me and the dog. I'm obviously hurt by this, but at the same time, I don't want to back down on the principle of having a wedding without pets. I've tried to explain that the day isn't about him and his dog, but he keeps making it sound like I'm being unreasonable for not accommodating Rex. A lot of my family members have taken my brother's side. They say I'm being selfish and inconsiderate. They say that I should just let him bring Rex because it'll make him happy and it won't hurt anyone. But I feel like if I give in to this, it'll set a precedent for future events. If I let one family member bring their dog to a wedding, what's next? Will others expect the same thing in my baby shower, family reunions, or even just family dinners? Plus, it's my wedding day. I want it to go exactly the way we've planned it, and I don't want to have to worry about a dog causing disruptions. I've talked to my fiancé about this, and while he agrees with me that we shouldn't have dogs at the wedding, he's also really torn because he doesn't want to cause family drama. He thinks that if I just let my brother bring Rex, it'll keep the peace. But at the same time, he agrees that it's not about caving to every demand. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother bring his dog to my wedding. I don't want to cause any rifts in the family, but I also don't want to feel like I'm being pushed into doing something I don't want. I feel like I'm in a lose-lose situation here, and I just want some perspective. AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend stay with me after she accused me of being too controlling for not wanting her to bring her dog. So here's the situation. I, 29F, live in a small, two-bedroom apartment with a roommate. I've been living here for a few years now, and my roommate, 30F, is someone I've known for a while. We're close, and everything's been pretty smooth sailing. My brother, Kyle, 32M, is very close to me as well, and we've always had a good relationship. About a month ago, Kyle and I were talking, and he mentioned that his girlfriend, Tasha, 30F, will be visiting town for a few days. Kyle has been dating Tasha for around 6 months, and this will be the first time she'd be in town when I'm home. They're in a pretty serious relationship, but I've only met her a handful of times, mostly during family gatherings. I was fine with her staying with me, but I didn't know what to expect when she actually came. Now, a little bit about my apartment. It's small, like really small. The living room is cramped, the kitchen is practically non-existent, and the 2 bedrooms are only big enough for a bed, a dresser, and a small desk. My roommate and I are both pretty clean and particular about how the space is maintained. It's a shared apartment, and we make sure we keep it as clutter-free as possible. It works for us. A week before Tasha was supposed to arrive, I get a text from Kyle saying that she was going to bring her dog with her. Now, this isn't just any dog. It's a large, high-energy breed that sheds a lot and needs constant attention. I know this because I've met the dog before. He's sweet, but he's also a handful. I didn't really think this through at first, but when I read the message, I immediately realized that having a dog in such a small apartment would be a nightmare. Between the space limitations and the fact that I work from home a few days a week, I didn't think it would be fair to my roommate or to myself to deal with a dog in such close quarters. So, I told Kyle that I wasn't comfortable with Tasha bringing her dog. Here's where things get complicated. Kyle wasn't happy with my decision. He said that it wasn't fair to make Tasha leave her dog behind when she was visiting, especially because he's a huge part of her life. I told him that I understood that, but that I just didn't think it was practical. I explained that I didn't have the space for a dog, and it would be disruptive to both me and my roommate. I also reminded him that I work from home, and it would be difficult to focus with a dog running around. I offered other solutions like Tasha finding a nearby dog-sitting service or her staying in a hotel with her dog if it was that important to her. Kyle pushed back a bit more, but in the end, he seemed to agree. He said he'd talk to Tasha and let her know that the dog couldn't come. However, the next day, I got a call from Tasha herself. She was upset, and she said that she didn't understand why I couldn't make room for her dog. She said that I should be more understanding and that it was just a dog. She also accused me of being controlling for not letting her bring him. I explained my reasoning again, but she didn't seem to listen. She said that if she couldn't bring her dog, she'd rather stay somewhere else. I told her that I'd understand if that was the case, but I didn't think it would be appropriate for her to expect me to compromise my space for her pet, especially since I had already explained my concerns. A few days later, Kyle called me, and he was furious. He said that I was being unreasonable and that I was making Tasha feel unwelcome. He said that I was being too rigid and that I should just get over it. He kept bringing up how important the dog was to Tasha and how I was ruining the visit by being so controlling. I was taken aback by how quickly Kyle took Tasha's side. He told me that it was just a few days and that I should make it work for her. He said that family should be supportive of each other and that I should have been more flexible. I told him that I was being supportive by offering other solutions, like finding a place for the dog to stay or having her stay in a hotel. But it didn't matter. Kyle insisted that I was being unreasonable and too controlling. At this point, I started to feel guilty, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't in the wrong. I don't think it's unreasonable to want to protect my living space, especially when it's so small and I'm already sharing it with a roommate. Plus, I didn't feel comfortable giving up my space for a dog I wasn't familiar with, especially when it could disrupt my daily routine and work. When Tasha arrived in town, I hadn't heard from her or Kyle in a few days. I was hoping things would settle down, but instead, I got a message from Kyle saying that he and Tasha had decided to stay at a hotel for the duration of her visit. He told me that he was disappointed in me and that he hoped I'd think about what I'd done to the family dynamic. I felt bad about the whole thing. I've always been close to my brother, and I don't want to cause tension between us, but I also feel like my concerns about my living space were valid. I try to be understanding of Tasha's situation, but I also don't think it's unreasonable to not want to house a dog in a small apartment. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend stay with me after she accused me of being too controlling for not wanting her to bring her dog. AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding after she demanded I wear a dress I couldn't afford. I, 28M, have a sister, Emily, 26F, who is getting married in a couple of months. We've always had a somewhat rocky relationship, but it's not like we hate each other. We've just never been the type to get along super well, especially as we got older. I've always been the more laid-back sibling, while she's always been a bit more high-strung, a bit of a perfectionist, and very concerned with appearances. The wedding planning has been, well, let's just say it hasn't been a smooth process. From the beginning, Emily made it clear that her wedding was going to be the most important day of her life, and she wanted everything to be perfect. I get it. It's her big day, and she's entitled to want everything to go exactly the way she dreams. But as the planning went on, I started to notice some things that were a bit off. First, Emily started dictating what the bridesmaids would wear. I had no problem with this at first, but then she started assigning certain outfits to people and their body types. She's a size 0, so naturally, she was picking these ridiculously tight, floor-length dresses for her bridesmaids that didn't seem to fit anyone's figure except hers. She actually told our cousin, who is a bit cavia, that she would have to lose weight or she couldn't be a part of the bridal party. I was a little uncomfortable with that, but I try to stay out of it. I don't want to cause drama in my family, especially not when it's something as big as a wedding. I told her I'd wear whatever she wanted me to wear as long as it didn't have to go through a dramatic makeover or spend a ton of money. Now, here's where things started to really go south. Emily informed me that she wanted me to wear a dress for the wedding. No problem. I've worn dresses to events before, and I'm not opposed to it. The problem came when she sent me the link to the dress she wanted me to wear. It was a designer dress that cost $800. I couldn't believe it. I make decent money, but I also have bills, student loans, and a pretty tight budget. There's no way I could afford an $800 dress, especially for something I would probably only wear once. I try to be diplomatic about it. I texted her and said, "Hey, I love the idea of the dress, but I really can't swing $800 for a single outfit. Would you be willing to find something a bit more affordable?" I suggested a few dresses that were similar in style, but much cheaper. She didn't take it well. She called me almost immediately, and the conversation was tense right from the start. Emily went off on me, saying that I was being selfish and inconsiderate. She told me that it was her wedding, and if I really cared about her, I'd be willing to do whatever it took to look good and represent the family. I told her I understood that, but I couldn't go into debt for a dress I would never wear again. She didn't let up. She said, "Well, I guess you're just not willing to make an effort then. This is the one thing I'm asking for. If you're not willing to spend the money, then I guess you shouldn't come at all." At this point, I was kind of shocked. I said, "Are you seriously telling me that I can't come to your wedding because of a dress? Isn't the point of this day for family to come together and support you?" She told me, "It's not about the dress. It's about showing that you're willing to invest in my special day. If you can't do that, then maybe it's better if you don't come." I was speechless. I never imagined she would go this far. I tried to stay calm, but I was starting to get upset. I reminded her that I'd already agreed to everything else, that I was going to show up, support her, and be there for her. The dress, for me, was just an accessory. It didn't change my feelings for her or my commitment to being there. But she just kept insisting that it was non-negotiable. Eventually, I told her I wouldn't be able to attend if the dress was the only thing she cared about. I didn't want to make it into a bigger issue, but at that point, I felt like she was putting material things above family. The next few days were full of texts and calls from our parents, who tried to convince me to just go along with what Emily wanted. They said it was her big day, and I needed to put aside my pride for the sake of family unity. My mom said, "You know how she is. She gets really fixated on things. Please don't let this come between you two." I stood my ground. I explained to my parents that I was more than willing to be there for Emily, but I couldn't justify spending that much on a dress for one day, especially when I felt like my presence should matter more than a piece of clothing. After that, things really started to spiral. Emily posted about the dress issue on social media, subtly throwing shade about how some people just couldn't be bothered to make an effort for her big day. That hurt a lot, and I felt like she was trying to guilt-trip me in front of everyone. I tried to ignore it, but the more I thought about it, the more upset I became. Now, some of my friends and extended family are weighing in, and I'm getting mixed opinions. Some think I'm being unreasonable and that family is supposed to make sacrifices for each other, while others agree with me that it's ridiculous to ask someone to spend that kind of money on something so shallow. I'm really torn. I feel like I'm not asking for much, but she's making me feel like I'm ruining her wedding. At this point, I'm honestly wondering if I should just cut my losses and not go at all. I know it sounds dramatic, but I'm also hurt that she's prioritizing a dress over family. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of this dress situation? I feel like I'm being unreasonable, but I also don't want to let her walk all over me just because it's her special day. AITA for not wanting to attend my best friend's wedding because she didn't invite my boyfriend? So a little backstory. I'm 28F, and my best friend, Mia, is getting married in a few weeks. Mia and I have been friends since childhood. We've been through everything together. High school drama, breakups, college, and so many life milestones. I would say that we're closer than sisters. She's always been like family to me. Here's where things get complicated. I've been in a relationship with my boyfriend, Nate, for about a year now. It's a pretty solid relationship. We get along great, have a lot of fun together, and I'm genuinely happy with him. He's not perfect, but he's wonderful. He's kind, funny, and genuinely supportive of me. So, Mia is getting married, and naturally, she's been talking about her wedding plans for months. She's been super excited, and we've had many conversations about the details. I assumed that Nate and I would both be invited since, we're a couple, and I've known Mia for so long. I didn't think it was even a question. But as the wedding invitations started going out, Nate's name wasn't on the list. At first, I thought it was an oversight, but when I asked Mia about it, she said, "Oh, I didn't think Nate would fit in with the crowd I'm having." I was honestly taken aback. I asked her what she meant by that, and she said that Nate is too casual and doesn't mesh with the vibe of the wedding. She added that since he doesn't really know a lot of people in her friend group, it might be awkward for him. I was stunned. I asked if she was serious, and she said that she wasn't excluding him on purpose, but that she had to think about the overall feel of the event and make it a good experience for everyone attending. I felt like she was being unfair, and honestly, I was hurt. Nate's a good guy. He might not be part of our inner circle, but he's been there for me during some really tough times, and it seemed like Mia just didn't want to make an effort to include him. I told her I didn't think it was right for her to exclude him like that, especially since we're a couple. I explained that I couldn't attend her wedding without him because it would feel weird to me. She didn't take it well. She got defensive and said that it's her wedding and she should be able to invite whoever she wants. She also mentioned that she wasn't asking me to choose between Nate and her, but she had a vision for the event and couldn't accommodate everyone. I didn't know how to respond to that, but it really hurt me. I didn't want to make it a big deal, but I also didn't want to go to her wedding without Nate. It just felt wrong. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and after some emotional back and forth, I told her that I wouldn't be attending her wedding unless Nate was invited. I explained that it wasn't about her or the wedding, it was about my values. I didn't want to feel like I was betraying my relationship to attend her wedding, especially since she's basically telling me that my boyfriend isn't good enough for her event. Mia was devastated. She said I was being ridiculous and that I was putting her in a terrible position because she didn't want to lose me as a friend. She said that if I didn't go to her wedding, it would be like I was choosing Nate over her, and that would destroy our friendship. I told her I didn't want to come to that, but I wasn't going to go against my principles either. It's in a couple of days, and I've been feeling really torn. I love Mia, but I don't think I should have to choose between my relationship and my best friend. Nate and I are a package deal, and I don't feel like I'm being unreasonable by not wanting to attend her wedding if he's not invited. Some of my other friends are on Mia's side, saying that I'm overreacting and should just go without Nate to keep the peace. Others have said they understand why I'm upset, but that I might be making a bigger issue out of something that could be fixed if I just let it go. Honestly, I'm not sure where I stand anymore. I don't want to ruin my friendship with Mia, but at the same time, I don't feel like I should have to choose between her and Nate. So, AITA for not wanting to attend my best friend's wedding because she didn't invite my boyfriend? Any advice would be appreciated because I really don't want to lose either of them. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for not helping my sister with her wedding when she told me to get over the way she treated me as a child. Okay, so I, 28M, have a sister, Samantha, 26F. Our relationship has always been a bit rocky, and I've been wondering lately if I'm in the wrong for not helping her with her wedding. I'm not sure what to think anymore, so I'm turning to you all for some perspective. Growing up, Samantha was the golden child in our family. She was always the one getting attention, the one getting praised for everything she did, and I was the one who just kind of floated in the background. To be clear, I'm not saying my parents hated me or anything, but they definitely gave her a lot more attention. This started when we were kids and continued into our teenage years. For example, when we were 12 and 14, Samantha wanted to go to a concert with some friends. My parents couldn't afford to take both of us, so they decided I would stay home. That was fine with me. I wasn't particularly interested in the concert. But then, the next weekend, I overheard my mom saying that Samantha had been given money for a shopping spree at the mall, something they had never done for me. I had been working a part-time job for a few months to help with expenses, and when I brought it up, my mom just brushed it off as Samantha needing more attention. This kind of thing continued. Whenever there was an event, Samantha always got the new clothes, the better treatment, while I was told to just be happy for her. Even when we were in high school, she would borrow my things and never give them back, and if I ever asked, my mom would say I was too possessive and needed to let her have her fun. Fast forward to our adulthood. We don't talk much, but when we do, it's generally fine. I've built my own life, I moved out of state, got my own job, and basically distanced myself from my parents and her drama. I thought I had gotten over the past, but when it came time for Samantha's wedding, things got weird. She called me about 6 months ago, asking if I would help with the planning. I'm not going to lie, I was pretty shocked. Samantha and I had never really been close, and I've always made it clear that I wasn't big on weddings or the stress that came with them. But she said it was really important to her that we're family and that she really wanted me to be a part of it. She mentioned that her bridesmaids were all her college friends, and while she wanted me involved, she didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I was hesitant, but I agreed, mainly because I thought this could be an opportunity for us to finally get closer. I figured helping her would show that I'm trying to mend the relationship, especially since she had mentioned how important it was to her. But a few days later, things took a turn. At a family dinner, she brought up some stuff from our past. She started talking about how I was always so bitter about everything she got. Then, she said that she couldn't even understand why I was mad because it was just the way things were. She told me I needed to get over it and that being salty about childhood stuff was immature. It stung, especially considering I had been doing my best to move on and not bring up the past. The real kicker was when she made a comment about how she was only trying to be nice by asking me to help. She said she didn't need me to feel like a victim or hold on to things because she was trying to be the bigger person. Honestly, it felt like a slap in the face. Here I was trying to let go of the bitterness, and she was telling me I was still holding on to the past. After that, I backed out of helping her. I told her I didn't think I could be a part of her wedding after everything she had said. She seemed genuinely shocked, and I think she might have thought I'd just let it go. But I was hurt, and I couldn't just ignore the way she had dismissed everything I'd been through. I told her I didn't feel comfortable being part of an event that felt more like a formality than a meaningful gesture, and I needed space to figure out how I wanted to proceed. Now, my parents are upset with me. They're saying I'm being petty, that Samantha was just being honest about how she felt, and that I should just get over it. My mom has said that I'm holding on to things that happened years ago and that I need to let my sister live her life. She said that if I didn't help, I'd be ruining things and possibly making the family divide worse. I've had a few friends tell me I'm in the right because Samantha has never acknowledged how her actions hurt me, and I shouldn't feel obligated to just let it go. Others think I'm being childish and that it's a wedding, not therapy, and I should just suck it up and be supportive. I know I'm not perfect. I'm not proud of the resentment I've held on to, but I've tried to move on. However, it feels like Samantha is just trying to sweep everything under the rug and act like none of it matters anymore. I don't want to cause drama, but I also don't want to be made to feel like I'm the one in the wrong for not helping. So, AITA for not helping my sister with her wedding after the way she treated me and told me to get over it. Edit. Just to clarify, I have been to therapy and I've worked through a lot of the issues from my childhood. I thought I had really moved on, but the way Samantha acted made me feel like none of that progress mattered. AITA for telling my best friend I won't attend her wedding because she's making me choose between her and my girlfriend. I, 28M, have been friends with Claire, 29F, since college. We met during our sophomore year, and even though we were in different majors, we hit it off immediately. Over the years, we've been through so much together, and our friendship has always been solid. She's one of my closest friends, like a sister, and I would drop anything to be there for her when she needs me. Now, a little background. I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend, Sophie, 27F, for a little over a year. Sophie and I met through mutual friends, and things have been pretty amazing between us. We've been inseparable, and I can honestly say I'm in love with her. We've discussed moving in together in the future and have talked about long-term plans. So, it's pretty serious, and I want to be with her for the long haul. Here's where things start to go downhill. Claire is getting married in 6 months, and she's been very particular about the guest list, especially when it comes to plus ones. She's always been a bit controlling, and while I've never really minded it before, this time it's starting to get to me. She and I have had some arguments about the wedding details already because I felt she was being too demanding about other stuff, for example, insisting on me being her plus one for a bachelorette party out of state that I really didn't want to go to. A couple of weeks ago, Claire and I had a conversation that took a turn I wasn't expecting. We were talking about the wedding and the guest list when she casually mentioned that she didn't want me to bring Sophie to the wedding. At first, I thought I had misheard her, so I asked her to repeat herself. She said that Sophie wasn't family, and since she and I have been friends for so long, she wanted me to choose between attending the wedding or bringing my girlfriend. She said that having Sophie there would ruin the vibe of the event because she and Sophie didn't get along. Claire wasn't even trying to be subtle about it. She basically said Sophie could stay home if I still wanted to come. It honestly felt like I was being forced into a ridiculous ultimatum, and I was furious. I told Claire that there was no way I was going to choose between her and Sophie. I explained that Sophie and I have been together for a long time, and it's not like I'm just bringing a random date. She's my girlfriend, and I intend to have her by my side at events like this. I also told her that I thought it was unfair of her to expect me to choose, especially since Sophie has always been supportive of our friendship, and she wasn't even asking for anything unreasonable. Claire didn't take it well. She started crying and accused me of being selfish for not understanding how important her wedding is to her. She said that if I didn't respect her wishes, I wouldn't be welcome at her wedding. I tried to reason with her, but the more I explained my side, the more defensive she got. Eventually, she hung up on me, and that was that. Afterward, I felt conflicted. On one hand, I've always been there for Claire, and I want to support her on her big day. But on the other hand, I feel like I'm being asked to make an impossible choice. I can't and won't abandon Sophie over something like this. She's my partner, and I believe she deserves to be treated with respect by my friends. I've talked to Sophie about it, and she's upset too, but she's supportive of whatever decision I make. She even suggested that I talk to Claire again and try to work things out, but I don't know if I can. Here's the kicker. Claire has started telling other friends in our group that I'm being dramatic and overreacting. A few of our mutual friends have reached out to me, saying I should just go to the wedding without Sophie and keep the peace, but I feel like that's just enabling Claire's unreasonable behavior. I've always been the one to support her, and now it feels like I'm being asked to choose between the two most important women in my life, and I'm not okay with it. So, AITA for telling my best friend that I won't come to her wedding if I'm forced to choose between her and Sophie? I feel like I'm being reasonable, but the pressure is building, and I'm starting to second-guess myself. I'm not sure if I'm being stubborn or if she's really out of line here. AITA for getting my best friend kicked out of my wedding after she made a scene during the ceremony. So I, 28F, recently got married to my husband, Jason, 29M. We've been together for about 4 years, and we had a beautiful wedding. It was everything I had dreamed of, but one thing went horribly wrong that has left me questioning if I overreacted. I need some perspective, so here's the story. My best friend, Lily, 30F, and I have been close since high school. We've been through everything together: breakups, graduations, job changes, and everything in between. We've always been like sisters. However, over the past year or so, things between us have started to shift. I've noticed her becoming more distant, and she seemed jealous of my relationship with Jason. At first, I brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid. But things started to get more obvious. She would make snide remarks about my relationship, like how Jason's so perfect, it must be boring to be with someone like that. Or she'd say stuff like, must be nice to have everything go your way for once. I tried to talk to her about it, but she always brushed it off, saying she was just joking or that I was being too sensitive. At the same time, I started noticing that she was acting a little off with me around other people, making passive-aggressive comments whenever I would talk about wedding planning, or even when I'd mention my excitement about the big day. I try to be patient with her because I genuinely value our friendship. I didn't want to let my wedding day ruin what we've had for so many years. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Fast forward to the wedding. It was an intimate ceremony, with only our closest family and friends in attendance. Lily was my maid of honor, and I was expecting her to be there for me, like she always had been. The ceremony itself went beautifully, and I was beyond happy to marry Jason. But as soon as we got to the vows, things took a turn. I was in the middle of reading my vows when Lily suddenly stood up, interrupting the ceremony. She was visibly upset, and her face was red. At first, I thought she was having some kind of emotional moment, but when she started talking, I realized this wasn't what I thought. Lily began to accuse me of being a bad friend, and claimed that I was abandoning her now that I was married. She said she didn't recognize me anymore, and that I had changed since I met Jason. She told everyone that I wasn't the same person I used to be, and she was hurt by how I'd ignored her needs in favor of Jason's. I was completely shocked. The guests were silent, and I could feel all eyes on me. I didn't know what to do. My mind went blank. Jason, bless him, tried to step in and calm her down, but she wasn't listening. She kept going on about how I was making a huge mistake, how I was losing who I really was, and how my wedding day was the worst thing to ever happen to our friendship. It was humiliating. I felt like I was in a nightmare. I had always been there for her, supporting her through thick and thin, and now, on my wedding day, she was making it about herself. I told her to stop, that this wasn't the time or place, but she wouldn't listen. Eventually, my mom and my aunt had to intervene and escort her out because she was causing a scene, yelling at me the entire time. The rest of the ceremony was pretty much ruined at that point. I had to gather myself together, but I was already in tears. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Lily texted me later, accusing me of overreacting and said I should have let her speak her truth. She claimed that I should have been able to handle the pressure and that I was being too harsh by having her kicked out. She's now saying that I've ruined our friendship and that I should have been more understanding about her feelings. I've been torn up about it. On one hand, I can understand that maybe she was feeling left out or hurt, but on the other hand, this was MY wedding. It wasn't the time or place for her to air her grievances in front of everyone. I feel like I gave her so much patience over the past year, and this was how she chose to express herself. I don't know how to feel. Was I too harsh by kicking her out? Or did she cross a line? Was I wrong for not putting up with her outburst in front of all our guests? AITA for getting my best friend kicked out of my wedding after she made a scene during the ceremony? Edit. I want to clarify that before the wedding, I did try to have a conversation with Lily about her behavior. I told her I noticed she was distant, and I asked if she had any issues with me or with Jason. She always brushed me off and said everything was fine, so I had no idea she was harboring these feelings. I never intentionally ignored her, but I also didn't think I should be apologizing for being happy or for getting married. I feel like her behavior was a bigger issue than what she's claiming it is. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she made a huge request of me? I, 28M, have a sister, Lila, 25F, and we've always had a pretty typical sibling relationship. We argue sometimes, but we're close overall. Growing up, we had each other's backs more often than not, but that doesn't mean we never fought, especially in our teenage years. We're both pretty headstrong, so there's been some tension here and there. But for the most part, our relationship has been fine. Lila got engaged to her now fiancé, Jason, 30M, about a year ago, and at first, I was really happy for them. I had a good relationship with Jason, too. We'd hang out when they'd come to visit, and he seemed like a decent guy. But recently, something happened that has made me question whether I should even attend their wedding. The issue started a couple of months ago when Lila asked me to be her man of honor. I didn't think much of it first. Sure, it was a little unconventional, but it's not unheard of for brides to choose someone other than a female friend or family member for that role. I was honored that she would ask me. However, as she started talking more about the role, I began to feel uncomfortable. First, she told me that I would be responsible for some major tasks, including giving a speech at the wedding. At first, I was fine with that too. After all, we've done speeches at family gatherings before, and I'm not exactly shy. But then, she dropped a bombshell. She said she wanted me to wear a dress at the wedding. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She said it would make the wedding more special, and that it would add to the uniqueness of the event. She had a whole explanation about how gender norms are overrated, and that she wanted to make sure the wedding didn't feel like any other traditional event. To her, it was about breaking boundaries and making a statement. I'm all for breaking gender norms in general. I truly am. But the thought of wearing a dress to my sister's wedding didn't sit well with me. I mean, we're talking about a huge, formal event, and I've never worn a dress in my life. I tried to explain this to her, gently of course, but she didn't take it well. She said I was being close-minded, and that it would mean so much to her if I embraced the role she was envisioning. I still tried to be open-minded about it, thinking maybe it was something I could work through. But every time I mentioned how uncomfortable I was with the idea, she'd insist that I was just being difficult, and that it was just a dress. She even made the point that I shouldn't care about what people think or be so stuck in the past. But this felt like more than just wearing a dress. It felt like a big emotional ask that I didn't feel prepared for. At this point, I was feeling really conflicted. I had already agreed to be the man of honor, and I didn't want to back out and upset my sister, but I also didn't want to compromise on something that felt so outside of my comfort zone. I've spent my whole life as a guy, and while I totally understand that gender is fluid for many people, it wasn't something I felt ready to challenge for the sake of her wedding. I talked to a couple of my friends about it, and their reactions were mixed. Some told me I was overreacting and that it would be a fun way to support my sister. Others agreed with me that it was a bit too much to ask and suggested I have a serious conversation with Lila about how it made me feel. So I sat down with Lila, trying to be as honest as possible without sounding like I was dismissing her request. I told her that I loved her and wanted to be a part of her wedding day, but I didn't feel comfortable wearing a dress. I told her it wasn't about being against her values or being unsupportive, but that I just wasn't able to do that for her. I explained that I'd be happy to continue being her man of honor and fulfilling my duties, but I would need to do so in a suit, as that was what felt true to me. Lila was devastated. She couldn't understand why I was making such a big deal out of it. She said I was letting my old-fashioned views get in the way of something that could be so meaningful to her. She told me that by refusing to wear a dress, I was showing her that I didn't care about her wedding and that I wasn't willing to step outside my comfort zone for her. I tried to tell her that this wasn't about me not caring. It was about feeling like I was being asked to do something that wasn't just outside of my comfort zone, but something that felt like a betrayal of who I am. We went back and forth on it for a while, and in the end, she said that if I couldn't wear the dress, she didn't want me in the wedding at all. She said that if I was really committed to being part of her special day, I would be willing to make the sacrifice. After that conversation, I felt crushed. I love my sister, but I also felt like she wasn't respecting my boundaries. It's one thing to ask someone to participate in something they're uncomfortable with, but it felt like she was trying to force me into a role that I simply wasn't comfortable with, and I didn't know how to get her to understand that. Now, I'm at a crossroads. I haven't told her yet, but I'm seriously considering not attending the wedding at all. I don't want to cause drama or hurt her feelings, but I also don't want to sacrifice my sense of self for the sake of appeasing her. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to wear a dress? Should I just suck it up and wear it? Or is it reasonable to stand firm on my boundaries and back out of the wedding? AITA for calling off my wedding after my fiancé invited his ex to the ceremony without telling me? I, 27F, am getting married to my fiancé, 30M, in 3 weeks. We've been together for 5 years, and our relationship has generally been really strong, with only a few bumps here and there. We've been planning our wedding for about a year, and everything has been falling into place perfectly until recently. For some context, my fiancé has a complicated history with his ex-girlfriend, Sarah, 32F. They dated for about 3 years in college, but it was a pretty tumultuous relationship, and they ended things when he found out she had been cheating on him. It's been over 7 years since they broke up, and from what I understand, there's been very little contact between them in the last few years. I've always known about Sarah, and while I'm not thrilled about the fact that she was a part of his life, I trust my fiancé and never really worried about her being an issue. A couple of weeks ago, my fiancé told me he wanted to invite a few old friends to the wedding, which I was totally fine with. He's got a big social circle, and I was more than happy to accommodate. We started working on the guest list together, and everything seemed fine until a few days ago when I found out that one of the old friends he invited was Sarah. I found out when I was going through the RSVPs and saw that her name was listed. I immediately texted my fiancé and asked what was going on. He said, "Oh, I invited Sarah. She's been a part of my life for a long time, and it wouldn't feel right not inviting her." I was immediately uncomfortable and tried to explain why that was bothering me. I told him that I didn't think it was appropriate for his ex to be at our wedding. Our wedding is supposed to be a special day for us, and I feel like it would be incredibly awkward for her to be there, especially since they were together for so long. He insisted that he didn't have any romantic feelings for her anymore, and that they were just friends now. At first, I thought maybe I was overreacting, but the more I thought about it, the more upset I became. I don't want to spend my wedding day feeling like there's unresolved tension in the air. I also feel like it's disrespectful for him to invite someone from his past, especially someone who was such an important part of his life, without consulting me first. It makes me feel like I'm not being considered in a decision that should involve both of us equally. I told him that I wasn't comfortable with her being there, and that I felt like it was a huge breach of trust for him to invite her without talking to me about it first. He got defensive, saying I was overreacting and that I was being unreasonable. He said that he was just trying to be kind by inviting her, and that she was a good person who deserved to be included. I asked him what would happen if the situation were reversed, if I had invited an ex to our wedding without telling him. And he responded by saying, "Well, that's different. Your ex isn't like Sarah." When I asked him why Sarah was different, he just said that they'd known each other for so long and had been through a lot together. This argument went back and forth for a couple of days, with neither of us backing down. Eventually, I told him that I didn't want Sarah at the wedding, and that if she was coming, then I would not. I wasn't going to marry someone who didn't prioritize my feelings, especially when it came to something as important as this. I thought that would make him realize how serious I was, but instead, he became angry and told me that I was being unreasonable and controlling. He said he'd already told Sarah she was invited, and it was too late to take it back. I asked if he even considered how I would feel about this decision, and he said that I was the one making it into a bigger deal than it needed to be. He kept insisting that she was just a friend now, and that I shouldn't be so insecure. I tried to explain to him that it wasn't about insecurity, it was about respect. I shouldn't have to worry about his ex being present on what is supposed to be our most important day. I want to feel like I'm the center of attention on our wedding day. And inviting an ex who he clearly had a history with made me feel like I wasn't. It wasn't just about jealousy or insecurity. It was about my comfort and my happiness. The situation has been tense ever since. I reached out to a couple of my friends to get their opinions, and they all agree that it's completely inappropriate for an ex to be at the wedding unless both parties are completely comfortable with it. My best friend even suggested that if I were truly uncomfortable, I should reconsider marrying someone who would prioritize his ex over me. But I really don't want to call off the wedding. I've invested so much into this relationship, and I love him. I just don't think he's taking my feelings seriously. After a couple of more arguments, I told him that I couldn't go through with the wedding if Sarah was invited. He responded by saying that I was being too dramatic and that it was just one person. But to me, it's not just about Sarah. It's about the fact that he's not respecting my boundaries or considering my feelings in such an important decision. Now, he's saying that if I can't accept his decision, then maybe we shouldn't get married. I feel like I've given him multiple chances to fix this, and he's just brushing it off like it's no big deal. He's acting like I'm the one causing problems, but I feel like I'm just asking for basic respect. So, Reddit, AITA for calling off my wedding over this. I don't want to lose him, but I also don't want to marry someone who doesn't have my back when it really matters. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he kicked me out of his life for something I didn't do. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I have a brother, let's call him Jake, who is 32. Jake and I have always had a rocky relationship, but we used to get along fairly well growing up. We would fight a lot, like siblings do, but we'd also have each other's backs when it mattered. Over the years, though, Jake and I drifted apart. He became increasingly involved in his own life, and I got busy with mine. We saw each other at family gatherings, but didn't hang out much outside of that. A year ago, my life took a huge turn when I went through a really tough breakup. It was devastating, and I was dealing with a lot of emotional stuff. My ex had cheated on me, and the whole thing left me feeling broken and alone. I leaned heavily on my family during this time. I'm close to my parents and have a couple of cousins I'm close with, but Jake was the one I thought I could talk to the most. I always felt like we could confide in each other, so I reached out to him. Now, I understand that people have their own lives, and sometimes they don't have the emotional bandwidth to handle someone else's problems, especially when it's something heavy like a breakup. But I was crushed. I reached out to Jake one evening after a particularly tough day. I was in tears, emotionally drained, and I just needed someone to talk to. I didn't expect him to solve anything. I just needed an ear. I called him, and to my surprise, he didn't answer. I sent him a text asking if he could call me when he had a chance, and I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Jake saying, "I don't have time for this right now. I'm busy." I was really hurt by his response. He knew what I was going through, and it felt like he couldn't be bothered to offer even a little bit of support. But I didn't push it. I gave him some space, but I was genuinely disappointed. A couple of weeks went by, and I found out from my mom that Jake had been planning his wedding with his fiancée, Emily, for the past year. They had been engaged for about 6 months at that point, and they were finalizing everything for a wedding that was scheduled for the following summer. My mom mentioned that Jake wanted to have a sit-down with me to talk about something important before the wedding. I wasn't sure what it was about, but I agreed to meet him for coffee. When I showed up, Jake was already sitting at the table, looking a little uncomfortable. We exchanged pleasantries, and then he got straight to the point. He told me that Emily didn't want me to be a part of the wedding because of something I allegedly did. I was stunned. I had no idea what he was talking about. He said that Emily had told him that I had caused drama during their engagement. I was totally confused. I had never done anything to cause problems in their relationship, so I asked him to clarify what he meant. Jake proceeded to tell me that during one of their early engagement parties, I had stolen attention from Emily. According to him, I had been too much in the spotlight that day and that it made Emily uncomfortable. I was shocked because I hadn't done anything like that. I wasn't even the center of attention. I was just there to celebrate them, but apparently, Emily had told him that I was disrupting the event. I immediately denied it, explaining that I had been polite and just trying to enjoy myself like everyone else. Jake didn't seem convinced. He told me that Emily felt uncomfortable around me, and he felt caught in the middle. He said that if I wanted to maintain a relationship with him, I would need to stay away from the wedding entirely and not cause any more drama. He told me that I could attend as a guest, but I couldn't be involved in any of the wedding events or family activities. To make matters worse, he said that I should respect his fiancée's wishes, or there might be permanent damage to our relationship. I was speechless. I couldn't believe it. How did a simple misunderstanding, one I had no control over, turn into something that led to me being essentially banished from his wedding? I tried to explain to him that I had never intended to steal anyone's spotlight, and I hadn't even known Emily felt that way. But Jake wasn't having it. He told me that he wasn't going to argue with me about it. He said that Emily's feelings were non-negotiable. I left that meeting feeling absolutely crushed. It felt like I had been betrayed by my brother, and not just by his words, but by his actions. I spent the next few days and a days processing what had happened. I tried talking to my mom about it, but she didn't really seem to take my side. She said that I should just respect Jake's decision and try to move forward. That advice didn't sit well with me, but I still tried to stay calm and figure out my next steps. Eventually, I decided that I couldn't just let this go. My brother was telling me that he didn't want me to attend his wedding because of something I hadn't done. I wasn't going to just sit back and pretend that everything was fine. I reached out to Jake one last time, asking if we could talk in person again. He didn't respond to my texts, so I left him a voicemail. In a voicemail, I told him that I couldn't be part of a wedding where I was being treated unfairly. I told him I was hurt by how he had handled the situation and that I couldn't attend the wedding if I wasn't going to be treated as a valued member of the family. I told him that I loved him and that I would support his marriage, but I couldn't pretend like nothing had happened. I didn't hear back from him for a week, and then he sent me a text saying that if I couldn't respect the situation, he didn't want me to come to the wedding at all. He said that our relationship was too strained to fix and that I had crossed the line. I was devastated. I couldn't believe that my brother had chosen his fiancée over me, especially after everything I had done for him in the past. It felt like he was willing to throw away our entire relationship over a misunderstanding that he wasn't even willing to address properly. The wedding came and went, and I didn't attend. It was painful, but I stuck to my decision. It's been a few months now, and things between me and Jake are still very tense. I'm hurt and angry that he let a small issue like this destroy our relationship. He hasn't made any effort to reach out to me, and I haven't either. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he kicked me out of his life over something I didn't do. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancée's treatment of me. I, 28F, am a younger sibling of 2. My older brother, 30M, is getting married soon, and I'm finding myself in an incredibly difficult situation. I'm trying to figure out if I'm the wrong here, so I'm hoping to get some unbiased perspectives on this. To give some context, I've had a fairly good relationship with my brother for most of our lives. We were close growing up, and even as adults, we talked regularly and spent time together. However, my relationship with his fiancée, let's call her Beth, has always been rocky. Beth and I met about 4 years ago when they first started dating. At first, I didn't think much of her. She seemed fine, and I assumed she and my brother were just getting to know each other. However, things started to get weird when Beth began making comments about how I dressed, how I acted, and just overall how I carry myself. She would often criticize my style of clothes, saying they were too young or immature for someone my age. She made me feel like I was always in competition with her, which was super uncomfortable. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was just her being critical or jealous. But as time went on, I realized it was more than just innocent comments. She began calling me childish in front of others, especially during family gatherings. She made little jabs at me in front of my parents, which made me feel humiliated, especially since my parents didn't call her out on it. They often laughed along, thinking it was just banter between the two of us. But it wasn't banter to me, it felt like bullying. I tried to have a conversation with my brother about how I was feeling. I told him I was uncomfortable with how Beth treated me, but he dismissed my concerns, saying she didn't mean any harm. He told me to just let it go and not make a big deal out of it. I tried to brush it off, but things only got worse from there. Beth began questioning me about personal things like my dating life, asking invasive questions about my job, and even made a comment about how I wasn't going anywhere in life while she had a career and was about to marry my brother. Over time, I started distancing myself from my brother and Beth, not wanting to deal with the constant negativity and judgment. I had a few more awkward run-ins with Beth at family events, and it just felt like no matter what I did, she found a way to tear me down. Even my parents began getting involved, saying I needed to grow up and stop taking things so personally. But they didn't seem to notice how out of line Beth was, and it started to feel like they were choosing her side. Fast forward to this year, and my brother announces his engagement. Naturally, I was happy for him, but it didn't take long before Beth started making more comments about how she envisioned the wedding. She asked me if I was planning on wearing something appropriate, implying that I wouldn't, which was frustrating because I always try to dress nicely for weddings. Then came the invitation to the bridal shower, which, for the first time ever, I declined to attend. I told my brother that I wasn't comfortable being around Beth and that I felt unwelcome in her presence. He tried to convince me that it wasn't a big deal and that I should just come for him, but I stuck to my decision. Things really came to a head when the wedding invitations were sent out. I received one, and I honestly didn't want to go. I've been on edge about it for weeks now. I spoke to my brother and said that, given everything that's happened between me and Beth, I didn't feel comfortable attending the wedding. I told him that I loved him and wanted the best for him, but I didn't think it was healthy for me to be around someone who had treated me poorly for years. My brother was furious. He said that I was being selfish and childish, and that he couldn't believe I would make his wedding about myself. He said it wasn't fair to put him in this position and that I needed to get over my issues with Beth if I wanted to be part of his life moving forward. He told me that if I didn't attend, it would really hurt him and possibly damage our relationship permanently. Now, I'm questioning whether I'm being unreasonable. I know my brother wants me there, and I love him, but I can't ignore the way Beth has treated me for all this time. She has made me feel small, insignificant, and like I don't matter. I understand that weddings are huge milestones, and I don't want to cause any more drama, but I also don't feel comfortable pretending everything is fine when it's not. I've also thought about how this might affect our relationship. If I don't go, will it be the end of my relationship with my brother? I'm torn because I feel like I'm being asked to put aside my feelings for the sake of his wedding. But at what point do I stand up for myself? So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of how his fiancée has treated me? Thanks for any advice or perspective you can offer. AITA for refusing to let my friend's daughter stay with me after she lied about being in an abusive relationship. I, 29M, have a friend, Ava, 28F, who I met in college. We've always been close, but over the years, our relationship has mostly remained a friendship from afar due to life, work, and my moving to a different city. Recently, Ava reached out to me out of the blue. She told me that her daughter, Bella, 18F, was going through a rough patch with her boyfriend, and she needed to get away from her toxic relationship for a while. Ava explained that Bella would be coming to stay with me for a bit to have a safe space to clear her head. Now, before I go further, let me give some background. I'm very close with Ava. She's been like an older sister to me, and I would do pretty much anything for her. Bella is a little different, though. I've met her a few times, and while she's a good kid, we're not exactly close. Bella is a teenager with a lot of drama in her life, and while I understand that being a teenager is tough, I've always thought she could be a bit dramatic at times. When Ava asked me to let Bella stay with me for a while, I initially hesitated. I live in a one-bedroom apartment, and my work schedule is pretty demanding. But I agreed because I trusted Ava, and she assured me that Bella would respect my space and only stay for a couple of weeks at most. I figured it would be nice to help out, and I thought Bella really needed a break from her relationship issues. Bella moved in about 2 weeks ago, and everything seemed fine at first. She seemed grateful for the space and even helped out around the apartment. But as time went on, I started to notice a few things that didn't add up. Bella would sometimes mention her boyfriend in passing, and when I asked her more about the supposed abusive relationship, she would get defensive and brush it off. At first, I thought maybe it was just something she didn't want to talk about, which I could understand. But then, I overheard a conversation between Bella and a friend on the phone. Bella was saying that her relationship wasn't that bad, and that her boyfriend wasn't abusive, but that she was just mad at him for a while. This made me pause, and I started questioning the story Ava had told me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I decided to talk to Bella directly about it. One evening, I asked her how things were going with her boyfriend and whether she was feeling safe. I tried to be as non-confrontational as possible, just to make sure she was okay. Bella looked at me for a moment, hesitated, and then admitted that there was no abuse in her relationship. She said she had told her mom that because she didn't want to deal with the conflict of breaking up with her boyfriend. Apparently, she thought it would be easier to make her mom feel sorry for her by claiming there was abuse, rather than just admitting that she was having relationship issues. She told me she was just looking for a reason to get away from him for a bit, and it seemed like this was the easiest way to get out. I was honestly shocked. Not only had she lied to her mom, but she had also manipulated the situation to get sympathy from me. I felt betrayed, not because I thought Bella was trying to hurt me, but because she was playing on my trust and compassion. I had agreed to let her stay with me under the assumption that she was escaping an abusive situation, and now it seemed like all of that was fabricated. I didn't know what to do. I felt terrible for being in this position, but I also knew I couldn't let Bella stay here anymore if she had lied about such a serious thing. I didn't want to be the one to call Ava and say I was kicking Bella out, but at the same time, I wasn't about to let someone stay in my home under false pretenses. The next day, I called Ava and explained the situation. I told her that Bella had admitted that there was no abuse in her relationship and that she had made up the story to avoid conflict with her boyfriend. Ava was shocked and upset, and she immediately called Bella. After a tense conversation, Ava called me back and told me that Bella had admitted to her that she had fabricated the entire thing. Ava was understandably disappointed in Bella and said she would talk to her more about the situation. Ava then asked me if I could still let Bella stay with me, but I said no. I explained that I didn't feel comfortable with the situation anymore, and I didn't want someone who had lied to me about something so serious to continue staying in my home. Ava tried to convince me to reconsider, but I stuck to my decision. It's been a few days now, and Ava is still upset with me. She says that I overreacted and that Bella is just a kid trying to figure things out. She also says that I should have been more understanding and that I could have let Bella stay until she figured out her relationship issues. Ava feels like I'm being too harsh on Bella and that I should have been more supportive of her. I feel like I made the right decision, but I can't help but feel guilty. Ava is my friend, and I know she's disappointed in me. I understand that Bella is young and probably didn't think through the consequences of her actions, but I also feel like lying about something so serious undermines trust. I don't think I overreacted by kicking her out, but I'm starting to second-guess myself. Did I do the right thing by refusing to let Bella stay with me after I found out she had lied about the abuse? AITA for refusing to let Bella stay with me after she lied about being in an abusive relationship? AITA for telling my best friend that I won't attend her wedding because of her treatment of my sister? So, here's the situation. I, 29F, have a best friend, Emily, 30F, who I've known since middle school. We've been through everything together, and I thought we were basically inseparable. Lately, though, things have been getting weird between us, and it all comes down to my sister, Sarah, 26F, and how Emily has been treating her. To give you some context, Sarah and I are close, but we've always had a bit of a competitive relationship. We argue sometimes, but we've got each other's backs when it really counts. Sarah has always been a bit quieter and more reserved than me, but she's intelligent, kind, and has a very dry sense of humor that a lot of people don't always get first. I'm the outgoing one in our family, the one who's more social, so I guess I've always been the one to make a lot of the connections and friendships. Sarah and Emily got along okay at first, but over the years, I've started noticing that Emily seems to treat my sister differently, and not in a good way. A few years ago, Emily and her fiancé, Matt, 32M, got engaged. Emily asked me to be her maid of honor, which I was thrilled about. We began talking about all the wedding plans, the dress, the bridal party, everything. I was so happy for her. I was going to stand by her on one of the most important days of her life. At some point, Emily started talking to me about how she didn't want Sarah involved in any part of the wedding. She told me that she didn't think Sarah would fit in with her group of friends, that she didn't look the part, and that she thought Sarah's reserved nature would make the whole atmosphere awkward. She suggested that Sarah could just stay on the sidelines and watch the wedding as a guest. I tried to defend my sister, explaining that Sarah might not be super outgoing, but she was still family and would want to be involved in the day. Emily just kept insisting that it would make everything easier and more fun if Sarah wasn't included. I pushed back a little more, but Emily got really defensive, so I backed off. Things started getting worse from there. Emily started making passive-aggressive comments about Sarah whenever we hung out. For example, when Emily and I went dress shopping, she made a comment about how Sarah would never fit into one of the bridesmaid dresses because of her body type, even though Sarah is slim and has a completely different figure from Emily's. Then, at the bridal shower, Emily made a joke about how Sarah might not even know how to act at a fancy event like that. At first, I tried to brush it off. I thought Emily was just being bridezilla and didn't mean anything by it. But then, the comments kept coming, and it got to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. The final straw came when Emily and Matt invited me and Sarah over for dinner. At the table, Emily made another offhand comment, this time about Sarah's job. She said, "It must be nice to just have a job where you sit around and talk to people all day. Too bad you're not doing something a little more substantial, like helping people or making a difference." Now, Sarah works as a school counselor. She works with troubled kids, helps them deal with emotional issues, and has a huge impact on their lives. It's a very demanding job, and she's incredibly passionate about it. Emily knew this, and I could tell she was intentionally trying to belittle Sarah's work. I snapped. I told Emily that she needed to stop treating my sister like she was beneath her and that she was being downright cruel. Emily got really quiet, and Matt just stared at his plate, obviously uncomfortable. Emily eventually said, "I didn't mean anything by it. I was just joking." But I could tell from the way she said it that she didn't think she had done anything wrong. The whole rest of the evening felt incredibly tense. After that dinner, I was furious. I called Emily the next day and told her that I wouldn't be able to attend her wedding if she continued to treat Sarah like this. I explained that my sister was family, and if Emily couldn't find a way to be kind and respectful to her, then I couldn't stand by her on her big day. Emily was stunned and upset, and she kept telling me that I was being dramatic and overreacting. She said that it was her wedding and that I needed to stop making it all about Sarah. I told her that I wasn't making it about Sarah. I was making it about respect. I explained that a wedding wasn't just about the bride and groom. It was about all the people who supported them and the relationships they valued. If she couldn't show my sister the basic decency and respect she deserved, then I couldn't support the marriage. Emily got really angry and hung up on me. Since then, things have been really tense between us. She's called and texted a few times, saying that she doesn't understand why I'm making this a big issue and that it shouldn't affect our friendship. She's even implied that I'm jeopardizing our entire friendship over something so small. But to me, it's not small. It's about the way she's treated my sister for years. The rest of our friends have been caught in the middle. Some of them agree with me, saying that Emily is out of line and should have been more considerate of Sarah's feelings. Others think I'm being too sensitive and should just let it go for the sake of the wedding. My mom thinks I did the right thing standing up for Sarah, but my dad says that I'm overreacting and making a scene for no reason. I'm feeling a lot of guilt over the situation. I really want to be there for Emily on her big day, but I also can't stand by and let her treat my sister like that. I've always been there for her through everything, and it feels like she's turning her back on me and Sarah when we need her to be a friend the most. So, AITA for telling my best friend I won't attend her wedding because of how she's treated my sister. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.